What happens when the very act of teaching becomes impossible? That's the real tension that every teacher in America is facing right now because teaching's not just hard. It's always been hard and it's always going to be hard. The deeper concern is when teachers feel like the core function of their role has been shifted. In this video, I'm going to unpack why so many teachers feel like they're no longer teaching, but they're like a manager that works at McDonald's, where that shift actually comes from, and what we can realistically do to restore clarity, authority, and purpose in the classroom. But before we get into that, let's hear what some of the teachers have to say. Teachers say that they feel less like instructors and more like de-escalators of every single microdrama that happens in the classroom every single day. They feel more like crisis managers. For whatever reason, this Gen Alpha bunch of students that we're dealing with today, they are completely incapable of utilizing basic coping strategies whenever somebody calls them a mean name or somebody does something that they don't like. Teachers feel like behavior technicians, and they're being asked to analyze and to try to diagnose the real and actual trauma responses of students in their classroom. And they also feel like emotional regulators trying to do an impossible job. And the reason why is because by the end of the third week of school, I'm pretty dysregulated myself. How in the world can a dysregulated teacher help a dysregulated student, in particular when there's 25 of them in the classroom? And this shift in education, it's extraordinarily important. When your professional identity changes without clarity or support, we begin to see what we're seeing now. And that is the quiet erosion that takes place inside of the educator. And it plays out in three ways. Number one, professional confidence. Teachers begin to question their competence. And it's not because they forgot how to teach, but it's because the system redefined success and didn't tell anybody. Number two is authority and leadership identity. Teachers are trained to lead the room. And so when authority becomes unclear or it seems to be negotiable, they no longer feel like they're leaders. They feel like they're just reacting to the things that are happening in their classroom and that they don't have any control over the outcomes. And number three is emotional resilience. Constant micro disruptions keep the nervous system activated and on edge. That phrase, "you're on my last nerve," that is what those micro disruptions do. And over time, here's what happens: our patience shortens, our irritability increases, and our emotional exhaustion becomes the baseline for what is actually normal. Now, the good news is I want you to know that that's not weakness on your part. It is neurological fatigue, and it's caused by three structural shifts that have happened in education. Now, one of the ways that we can overcome some of these pressures is by setting boundaries in our life. And if you're anything like me, you struggle with setting boundaries. And that's why I made a guide for us. It's free, it's 100% free, and it's always free. And you can grab it right down there in the description box, or you can see the QR code right there on the screen. But nevertheless, however you get it, just go get it. It'll help you get your professional, personal, and spiritual boundaries in place so that you can make it in teaching for the long haul. Holy cow! Let's see who all we got in. Who all's in? Trying to let everybody get caught up right here. When you jump in, let us know what is your grade level, your content area, and if you don't mind, let us know your state or country, because we have people in our lives that are from France, from Australia, and then there's the good old Chicago area where we have people from. Lots of people from Texas, a lot of people from California. In case you don't know, I'm all the way over in Florida or down in Florida, depending upon where you're at. And every Sunday night at 7 p.m., we go live right here on YouTube. And our whole goal is, can we help encourage you? Can we help encourage teachers? So before we get going, just a few things right there. I mentioned a little bit of it, and I just want to come back to it. Is number one, if I can get my computer to work, we seem to be running slow. Is there's all kinds of free resources down in the description box or in the description box, and also up here on the screen. They're free. They're 100% free. They're always free, and I want you to go grab those. Okay. There's also my suggested reading list is down in the description box. I'm going to be coming back to this later. I talk about it all the time. This book, Sacred Rest, because it talks about a specific topic that we're dealing with tonight, and that is sensory overload. So make sure you go grab it. It's again, the link is down there. Take you right over to Amazon. It's just a few bucks. More than that, also, if you choose, if you're like me and you struggle as a human being and just as a teacher in general, you might need to have a coach. I was in a coaching relationship for a little bit over 3 years. Literally saved my life, literally saved my career. So go ahead, scan it. You can book a coaching call here at Teacher Talk. They're very reasonable. Also, down in the description box, you can get it there if you don't want to scan it or if you're not on your TV. As it turns out, about 40% of the people that watch our lives watch them on TV. And I don't know, it kind of makes me feel like a talk show host. I, I really don't know what to say. I'm not a very good host, but that's the way I feel. All right, we've got some folks that's jumped in here. Let's see where we're at. First grade from Pennsylvania. That's what I'm talking about. I think it's first time in Pennsylvania. Hey, Silicon Steve, good to see you right there. Calculus in Silicon Valley. One for him. Good to see you. I'm subbing in early childhood, mostly ESC second grade, and from Colorado. Okay, I got to tell you, hey, Scorpio, all the way up in Massachusetts, we have a snow day tomorrow. Good grief. Good grief. Listen, it has been 85 degrees where I live. 85. That's 8-5 for the last several days. And it's going to be like 36 tomorrow in the morning. It's going to get no warmer than 50. We have softball and baseball games. I'm the athletic director and dean of students at my school, so I have to be there for those. So I don't know if I can survive that much cold weather. And there's no way, Scorpio, possibly. There's no way that I could possibly um I could possibly take a snow day tomorrow. I would absolutely die. Hey, Kenneth Williams, sixth grade Earth and Space Science, Birmingham, Alabama. Roll Tide, roll Tide. All right, I'm not a Tide fan. I'm a Gator fan. Well, I'm not really a Gator fan. It's hard to be a Gator fan. One for him says that his biggest struggle. I wonder how many others could go along with this. I'm gonna try to get it up there. Thing drives me nuts. All right, look right here. That's my biggest rest issue right there. I struggle with rest. I struggle with sensory overload. And we're going to get to that just a little bit tonight. I don't want to get ahead, but I do want to get into it. All right. So a lot of you are new here. Lynn is brand new. Silicon Valley. Steve is new tonight. Kenneth Williams, the 777, is brand new in here tonight, and we appreciate y'all jumping in. And as we go, make sure you drop whatever questions you got. I mean, feel free to ask them any time that you wanna ask a question or whatever. Anytime you have something that you want to bring up, go ahead and get it. And in between segments, we're going to jump right back into it. Once again, Colorado or Scorpio, she has a snow day coming up, and I am not in any way envious of her snow day. I am like torn up because it's going to be 36 degrees down here. So there's that, all the way from Florida. So boundaries only matter if we understand what we're up against. And what we're up against in education, it's not just behavior. We're up against a structural shift that has taken place in education. And the very first structural shift is the phenomenon of constant noise. In the classroom, it is constant stimulation. It's constant sensory input and output. It's a constant change of direction of what we're doing in the classroom, being taken from one thing over to another and don't have long enough to even complete a task. And modern classrooms are saturated with stimulation. Even when there's nothing major happening in the classroom, it's still very rare that there is the sound of stillness. And I know that doesn't go together, but the sound of stillness. And what makes this so exhausting is that the nervous system never gets a chance to reset. And I got to tell you, and I only speak for myself, but I would rather have to deal with a big fight in the classroom or a big explosion of disrespect in the classroom, then I would have to deal with what I call the 1 million a day micro disruptions. And if you have been in the classroom for longer than a minute, you absolutely know what I'm talking about. Here's some of the things, the 1 million a day micro disruptions. Tapping pencils. You want to talk about something that can drive a person absolutely nuts. And that's somebody taking the lead into their pencil and just tapping it off the top of their desk. The humming under the breath. Anybody ever had that happen out there? If you have, drop that down in the comments or in the chat for us and let us know. Do you have any students that just hum? What about this one? I was dealing with a student one time and she would just sing. She in class. She would sing. Anybody ever had that out there? And I guess the truth of the matter is that when a person sings, they're generally happy. And I'm glad for a happy student, but they can't be that happy in class to where they're starting to sing. Then there's the side conversations that never fully stop. They just go on and on and on, and you can't get them under control. And then there is the shifting of the desk, the picking up of the desk, the moving around, the calling out, and all of this stuff just goes on all throughout the time that we're in the classroom. And you know what the truth is that individually, none of those behaviors are all that bad. They're actually very small, but collectively, they create a baseline of noise. And when that baseline becomes normal, teachers operate in a state of low level stress all day long for 10 months out of the year. Now, in all fairness to our Gen Alpha students today, they didn't create this problem. They're only the product of a current societal shift. Gen Alpha has literally been raised in an environment that's built on instant scrolling, short form content, continuous notifications, immediate reward cycles. And who's responsible for this? Well, first and foremost, it's the parents. I just pointed out that continuous notifications are a big deal. I was dealing with a student some time ago, and we have a cell phone thing down here in Florida. You can't use them in class, right? And if you do, we confiscate them. And this girl, her phone was confiscated. It was her, and she was going to get a day of ISS. And I asked her, I said, hey, I said, what was you doing on your phone in the middle of class? Well, I was texting my mom. She texted me and needed to know something, so I needed to get back with her. So whenever I called the parent, sure enough, the parent's like, well, what was she doing with her phone? I said, well, she said she was texting you. And the parent was like, well, that is true. So I guess I can't get too mad at her for that. That's what we're up against. Society is responsible for this problem. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of pressure on kids to fit in and to be cool and to have a phone and to have the latest apps. And there's equally as much pressure on top of the parents to provide those things for their kids. Society puts a lot of pressure on the parent and the student, and sadly, we're giving in. But I think one of the other culprits is the school, because we have this current trend of how we're using technology and the fact that we've taken Chromebooks and we've given unfettered access to these students, and we've just turned it over without any kind of restrictions. And I don't know about your school, but at our school, we send the thing home with them because we say they got to do homework. Well, I can tell you what they do. It's not a lot of homework. They spend a lot of time on the internet looking at things that they shouldn't be looking at and further stimulating or overstimulating their brain. And so, is it any wonder that when we ask students to come to school for 7 hours a day, they have a hard time sitting still? They can only focus for about 10 minutes. They have to constantly get up and go to the bathroom or other places like that so that they can get a dopamine fix off of their phone. Is it any wonder? You see, Gen Alpha, they don't necessarily have a character flaw. Gen Alpha has a neurological challenge and they need a neurological readjustment. And so these micro disruptions are almost possible for me to deal with. I don't know about you, but I just about go crazy with all these unnecessary interruptions. And that's why I created the 5 minute reset. It's free, it's 100% free, and it's always free. And I know that 5 minutes isn't going to fix everything, but it's a step in helping us not lose our sanity. And it's linked in the description box, and it's also up there on the QR code. And you can go ahead and grab that. But I also wanted to point out Sandra Dalton Smith's Sacred Rest. Okay, we point this resource out all the time. She discusses 7 different types of rest, but one type of rest, most importantly, is sensory rest. Jump down there in the description and grab that. All right, let's check out the chat because again, I'm soloing it. I'm soloing it here, so it's hard for me to keep up. Okay, Silicon Valley, the dropping of metal water bottles. I think that next year, I'm going to put that up on the screen because that's no joke right there. All right, and I'm going to talk about metal water bottles in a different light here in just a minute. But I think our school is going to ban those coming up next year, and I'm going to tell you why. Because we've had 2 or 3. Well, we've had 2 or 3 pretty good little fights, and those metal water bottles have been used as weapons to hit people upside the head. One girl got hit right square on the nose. I think it broke her nose. Another kid got hit on the head. I mean, he had a big old knot on top of his head from that water bottle. So that is definitely an issue. All right, Scorpio says that I make them put water in the bottles. I make them put their water bottles in the bin at the door. They have to get. That's a good idea right there. They have to get up and go get a drink. That is top notch. Hey, look who we have in here. It looks like Andy from California, Long Beach. Andy, tell us what the weather's been out there. You're brand new here. Appreciate you jumping in. One for him says that he subbed in first grade. That did a mindful moment of 5 to 10 minutes of silence, classical music. Top notch right there. All right. I can't understand why those types of things cannot be integrated into the classroom. I did not necessarily do mindful moments many years ago. I mean, it's been, I don't know how many years ago now, but I did use music as a way to try to help regulate the room. And yes, it was classical music. All right. Some soft background type of music so that students could listen, so that students would have something to kind of focus their brain. And I hear that all the time, especially from students, because they can't have Bluetooth headphones at our school, but a lot of them, they put them in. And the reason why is because they want to listen to music. You know what they say? Hey, it calms me down. It helps me focus. And you know what? Maybe that's not true all the time, but I believe it's true quite often. And so why don't we just use a little bit of soft music in the classroom to kind of help like that? All right, let's see right here. Who we got up here? Andy. All right, my classroom is mostly paper and pencil to minimize distractions online, though phones are still a big issue. All right, so there's the issue. All right, we talked about in our very last live last Sunday that how we have traded out, pen and paper for quick dopamine hits. And we're paying for that in the classroom because the student can't really function beyond 10 minutes of being able to maintain their focus, right? And that's all because of short form content, social media, and how kids are allowed to have unfettered access to the dopamine machine, meaning our phone, right? However, when students use pen and paper in classroom, it automatically begins to rewire their brain. It forces the brain and the hand and the eyes to work all together at the same time. We need more pen and paper. I'm not against technology. I don't have a single problem with technology, but we need more pen and paper. Hey, just a moment ago, somebody went and downloaded one of our guides, and I appreciate you doing that. And I just want to take just one more moment right here before we move on and get to some more comments and just remind everybody that these are free. They're 100% free, and they're always free. And they're made specifically for teachers. I make them specifically for us. And I want you to go grab them. You can get them here at the QR, or you can get them down in the description box, whatever suits you. I mean, also, again, if you're anything like me, I spent 3 years in a coaching relationship. It was the greatest. It's the best thing that I ever did, really, in my life. And to be honest with you, I was ashamed about that because that's not my kind of thing. But it was somebody that I knew. They do not live anywhere around me, so I didn't have to worry about them like seeing them out in public or this, that, or the other. So if that's something that you're interested in, hit the QR code right there, or it's linked individually down in the description box to book a discovery call. We do have several packages available. The discovery call is first, and then I individualize those packages after that. So if you're interested in that, go jump down there and grab that right there. And let's get back over to the chat. I saw Scorpio put something there. Let's see what she says. See what's in there. All right. I do tapping with the kids and calm the. Are you talking about the little thing with your fingers? You talk like that right there, Scorpio. Is that what you're talking about? Within 5 to 10 minutes later, they're off the wall. Nothing helps. You're absolutely right. Now, hey, here's something that I wanted to say, and I think it may be in our content here later. Is that I got one up there. That's my friend Carol Osteen right there. That's her Rooted in Grace. I didn't know I hit that, but you guys should go over and check her out. Oh, by the way, Carol and Doc Pender will be back next week, so let's not forget about them, okay? So one of the things is that the students using the cell phone in the class and our inability to keep them off of the cell phone, that is not a classroom management problem of ours. We're not doing something wrong. That is a societal issue, and it is and I hesitate to use the word, of pandemic level in our country as it relates to students in the classroom. So when your students, right, are off the wall or sneaking their cell phone, that is not necessarily a sign that something's wrong with your classroom management. There is a neurological problem, and that is what needs to be addressed. All right, let's see. One for him said, I've heard that pen and paper help us learn. Absolutely, we retain more. That's absolutely correct. Scorpio, she agrees. Good. What do we got right down here? Let's see. Silicon Valley. Fortunately, I pray at the beginning of class because I teach a private Christian school. The difference is huge. I do not teach at a private Christian school. I spent 20 years in the pastoral ministry, however, 20 plus years in the pastoral ministry, and I've been almost 2 decades in teaching. And I pray, right, at school. And it does make a difference. And the difference that it makes, Silicon Valley, Steve, is in me. Would you agree with that? It makes a difference in me and how I approach the day and how I handle the issues that are going on around me. So absolutely. For those of you that don't know, and it's your first time in here, we are a Faith Forward channel. It's not because we want to be offensive or anything like that. That's just who we are. And so, tonight we're going to have a solution for this problem, and it's going to be rooted in the scripture. So I hope that you hang around for that. Now, here's where the conversation begins to get a little bit uncomfortable, because the environment didn't just change neurologically, it's changed structurally. And when structures change, authority changes with it. And now we are struggling with the second structural shift, which is the power vacuum, authority versus feel good. Over the past decade, schools have shifted, and it's probably more than just a decade, probably the last 3 decades. The schools have shifted as it relates to their discipline models, and I think that some of those intentions were good. The goal, I think, was to reduce shame and increase positive reinforcement. I got to tell you, whenever I was in school, my teachers didn't care to call us out and to shame us in front of other students. Not at all. But the transition that's been made has not always been very good. In the 70s and 80s, and I guess even the 90s, if kids were acting up and it was minor disruption, or they were having some sort of relationship problem with somebody else, a lot of times they had to end up writing lines. Does anybody remember that? I had to one time write 500 lines. I can't remember what it was for, but I know my fingers were cramped by the time I got done with it. There were also immediate consequences for bad behavior in the classroom. And again, back in those days, and I'm not necessarily advocating for anything, but in those days, corporal punishment was a quick go-to, and it was immediate. It wasn't, hey, I'm going to call your parents, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. They took care of the problem right then and right now. There was also a clear removal from classrooms for disruption. And that's very different from what we're seeing today, because we've replaced discipline with positive only systems. And I have to say, and you guys can send me hate mail. I hope that you don't. But I don't even like the acronym PBIS. I do not like it at all. And the idea, I guess, is good, but when we're writing behavior plans and we're putting in accommodations in IEPs, or we're putting in behavior plans in IEPs, and the student, or the goal of the student is to be respectful 75% of the time, and when they are respectful, then the student should get the reward that they most desire, which is Mountain Dew and potato chips. There's something wrong with that. And I didn't just make that up off the top of my head. I have sit literally in hundreds of IEP meetings, and that was an actual goal in an IEP meeting that I was in. And there have been other actual goals that are completely ridiculous. How does the teacher fund that? And how does the teacher get away with that in front of everybody whenever we're trying to bribe somebody to 3/4 of the time behave themselves so that they can get Mountain Dew and potato chips? That's my question. And so slowly, what has happened is that the baseline shifts downward. Authority becomes unclear, and now the Gen Alpha student thinks that they are our equals, and they absolutely do think that they are equal to teachers. They're not, but they sure do think it. Now, there's another problem right here as it relates to authority, is the administrative instability. In some schools, in a lot of schools, we see a new principal about every 2 to 3 years. I can remember several years ago, the thought process was that every 2 years we're going to shift, we're going to change out principals, and the reason why is because they had this idea that if principals went to different schools and saw how different schools did stuff, they would be a more well-rounded leader, and that's probably 100% true. But what they didn't realize is that when they created these unstable leadership positions, that they made the organizations weaker by doing that. There's also, and we run into this all the time, a new discipline framework every other year or every 2 years or something like that. There's always something changing right there, some way that's supposed to make it better. It's the newest and best thing. There's a new grading policy annually. You see how the instability of things that ought to be stable causes a problem? And then, of course, there's staff turnover that resets the culture of the school every single year. Principals and leaders should be working to do everything that they can to prevent churn and turnover, or to prevent policy changes that are just policy changes just for the sake of a policy change. That's just my thought. So school culture cannot stabilize when leadership constantly shifts, whether it's leadership changes or whether it's policy changes. It doesn't make any difference what it is. Stability brings stability. Teachers, however, are expected to hold to consistency inside their classroom, all while working in an inconsistent system. And that tension compounds on top of the teacher and it leads to exhaustion. Now, here's the thing 4 years ago, 4 years, good grief, what's happening to me? I can't talk. 4 years ago, I woke up and my face went completely paralyzed, and I thought I had a stroke. My parent or my family thought I had a stroke. My kids at school thought I had a stroke. My leadership thought I had a stroke. Thank the Lord I didn't have a stroke. My doctor said to me though, he says, John, he says, if you don't do something about your stress, then your stress is going to do something to you. And what he meant is that I was about to have a catastrophic health event if something didn't change. And I spent the next several years in a coaching relationship. And that coaching relationship literally saved my life and it literally saved my career. I have an opportunity for a call. You can book a discovery call with me down in the description box. It's there, or it's up on the QR code in the screen. I want to encourage you. You don't have to struggle. And if you are struggling, you don't have to struggle alone. So jump down there and grab it. Let's get started together and let's get life back on track. So let's jump over to, oh, look here. Look here, Silicon Valley. Yep, 500 lines, never messed around in class again. All right, it kind of works, doesn't it? A little bit. All right, one for him. He says, I agree with you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Scorpio down here. Let's see. A third grade teacher just left. Now, here's one of the things that maybe probably most of you don't know. And I only know it because I was looking for the answer to it. But at the Christmas break, do you know 25% of teachers leave the classroom during Christmas break? That's an incredible number of teachers. And so it's no shock that here in the middle of the third 9 weeks, that a teacher says, hey, I can't do it anymore. And while it would be impossible to say that it's one factor, the issue that we're talking about tonight and the way that Gen Alpha is, their behavior and misbehavior, the fact that they can't sit still in a classroom, the fact that they're very disrespectful and they think that there are equals, that is absolutely 100% playing into the problems that we're seeing with teachers. That is why teachers are walking out the door. That is why teachers are struggling with unmanageable chronic stress, right? Because it's more than the human being was designed to take care of. Somebody pointed out in something that I watched the other day that they were a teacher, but they feel like the very least thing that they do is actually teach. They feel like they're counselor, babysitter, mom, referee, psychologist, social worker, on and on and on. They're everything except being a teacher. Does anybody else out there feel that way? Or is that just me? Or am I just making it up? Or is it just, some people out and about and around that feel that way? Or is that kind of universal across the teaching spectrum? I'm just curious about that while everybody's looking at it. All right. Once again, had some downloads right there, and we appreciate that. But more than that, we appreciate the ability and the opportunity to help you. So there's our free resources. They're free. They're 100% free, and they're always free. Also, I wanted to make a mention to this, is that Teacher Talk is a free resource. All right. All of our resources are free. And we want to create more resources, and we are in the midst of creating more resources. However, we do appreciate your monetary support. And there are a few ways that you can do that. One way is through channel membership here at YouTube. I think they're like $4.99. I didn't even know how to set these things up. My channel got monetized. I didn't even know what was going on. Right. And I set these things and I set up this channel membership. I got to go back and do something else because I don't even know how I got them. Okay. And I'm being honest with you, but they're $4.99. And that helps fund, all right, Teacher Talk. You can also donate with super chats and with super stickers and all those other things that you're able to donate with. That helps support the work here at Teacher Talk. Our goal this year is to reach 1 million teachers. 1 million. We reached right at a half a million teachers last year, and every bit of that started with a 30-second video that I think I made on the first day of January of 2025. And 500,000 teachers later, we're still going. So we want to reach 1 million, and we want to grow the reach of our Teacher Talk organization to help teachers. Another way that you can do it is right here on the QR code. All right, I drink a lot of coffee. I got water in here, but I drink a ton gallons of coffee. You know what? If you're generous, you could buy us a cup of coffee, and all of those resources go directly back into uh, creating resources and creating opportunities for teachers. So those are just some of the ways that you can help us out, and we appreciate every bit of help that comes our way because it is expensive to keep this thing going. I can tell you that. But nevertheless, that's what we want to do. All right, let's see here. Get caught up. Scorpio. Let's get it up there. All right. Yes, I teach art. It's all about discipline and counseling. I tell you what, the fact that your school has an art program, I think is absolutely tremendous because it seems to me that whenever there are budget cuts, and we're up against them right now, it seems to me like the arts, like what you teach in music and band and other things, that they're always the first to go. So I appreciate what you do. And yes, it is all about discipline and counseling. You're absolutely right. Oh, that's exactly it. This is the way. Holy cow, I can't see it. Pramberg. I can't see it. My eyes aren't good enough. That's exactly what it feels like, doesn't it? Is that you're crowd control, not a teacher, you're crowd control, or you're like some sort of a manager of a department store, or you're a delivery truck driver or something along those lines. You feel like anything other than a teacher. All right, I think it's true. When I had my own classroom, I did way more than teach, mostly behavior management, referee, protector, and try to keep the students safe from aggressive students. That is quickly turning into the number one responsibility of teachers is to somehow try to manage behaviors. And that is not the role of a teacher. Classroom management, yes. Group dynamics, yes. Trying to manage and to somehow bring about behavioral modification, that is not the role of a teacher. Most teachers, in fact, I would probably go into the range of 85 to 90%. They don't even have any training in behavior modification. How in the world are we supposed to change and modify behaviors in a classroom of 25, 30, 35 students? And those other students are having their education stolen from them. Um, let's see here. Silicon Valley. I passed on your video onto a rookie teacher who was being told the behavior issues was due to a lack of relationships. He was encouraged. All right, that is absolutely wonderful. I'm going to tell you that's the go-to, and I want to say on the front end, whenever we get into this, um, I'm a relational person. I'm very good at it. I have no idea why. I'm just good at relating to, in particular, middle school kids. I love middle school kids, and I very easily build a relationship with them. However, there are some kids, no matter what I do, no matter how skilled I am, I simply cannot build a relationship, and it is not my fault. It is on them. I work at it, I try, but I can't. Most teachers, most teachers are very good relationship builders, and that's why they're in the business for as long as they are. But to say that when there are behavior problems in a classroom, that all you have to do is build a relationship, that I believe is a fallacy. because there are some kids that simply do not want to learn. Can they learn? Absolutely. Do they want to learn? No. All right. There are some kids who are jaded and they are guarded, and you cannot break through the armor that they have in order to build a relationship with them. That's just reality. Just the same as there are adults that whenever they come to work, they don't do their job well, or they don't show up on time, or they come to work and they cause all kinds of dissension at work. You can build all the relationship you want with them. That's just what they do. And so I'm glad that that helped your friend out, Scorpio. And I hope that you can, or Silicon Valley Steve, I appreciate that. Hopefully you can pass on a few more. Let's see right here. Admins are currently feckless with parents and students, and tough guys with teachers. How do you change that? Well, number one, I'm going to default to my old Dr. Pender um, thought process. Is you got to present data, right? Because if you don't have data, you'll become emotional about it. Whenever it comes to a kid, you got to you got to create for yourself a little bit of a tracking system. I've heard of teachers that had had little the little post-it notes that you can use for bookmarks. They would have those, and every time they had to get on a kid, they would pull off a post-it note, right? And keep track of it. And then they would keep track of what those problems were, how many times they called out, how many times they were out of their seat. And I get that that's a bit of a mental exercise right there. But when you present data, actual data to your admin, they either have to listen or you have to walk out the door and go somewhere else, right? And you're 100% right. There's a lot of admin that are feckless, and the reason why is because their district leadership above them is feckless. One of the things that we talked about last week, there's two things I think that districts and principals fear is obviously, first and foremost, the lawsuit that comes so often nowadays. But even more than the lawsuit, I think, is the social media call out. We have these things down here called word of mouth. I live in Alachua County. It's called Alachua County Word of Mouth. Every county I know of has one on Facebook. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But that's where parents go to talk poorly about teachers, to talk poorly about the school system and all the different things, and how their kid, was being bullied and nobody did anything about it, but their kid wasn't really being bullied and all that other stuff. I think districts and administrators fear that at least equally as much, if not more than an actual lawsuit, because it sways public opinion, and that can be difficult to deal with. Um, let's see here, Scorpio. Yep, that's what admin tells me. Build a relationship after the student threw a chair or screamed in class. Okay, the relationship there is broken, right? If that's what a kid does, then whatever relationship was there, that student broke it. And I can't help, I think you said earlier that you teach second grade. I can't help that they're in the second grade. But you throw a chair, the relationship is broken. That student needs to, number one, feel the weight of appropriate discipline for a second grade or whatever that is. And number two, has to be helped in restoring that relationship. That is on that second grader and on the admin, whoever your dean of students is, or whoever it is that works with students, in helping them restore the relationship with you. That is not on you. And I know that you're probably already working at trying to restore the relationship, but it needs to be brought to the attention of the student in a way that they can understand that, hey, you did wrong and you got to make this right. And it's going to have to be more than I'm sorry. It's going to have to come with some action. That's what I think. So y'all take that and do what you want with it. Let's see right here. What do we got? I took behavior tech training. I think a lot of teachers could use this training, but ABA isn't possible to implement in whole classroom environment. Our goal is to teach, not to change behaviors. One for him. You're 100% right. All right. Classroom management is not about behavior modification. Classroom management, it is about relationships, but it's more about structure. It's about routines, procedures, and expectations. And you know what? For 95% of the kids, maybe it's just down to 90%. But for 90 to 95% of the kids, a well structured classroom where students know what's expected, what to do, and how to do it, and to know that they are genuinely welcome in the class, that will work for 90 to 95% of the students. The other 5 to 10%, there may not be a whole lot that we can do. We should work at it. We should make every effort, of course. But if you have 10% of a classroom, if you have 35 students and 3.5 students in the classroom are disrupting that, that is impossible to control. Every teacher out here knows that what I just said is true. So go ahead and type amen down in the chat or something else. All right. When I had a student throwing things at me, I was told I broke the relationship. It's as though no one has any blame but teachers. You're 100% right. And I want you to know that if you had things thrown at you, you can go ahead and mark it down, send it over to your admin or wherever you work, send them this video. It ain't your fault. Okay? That's like a husband throwing something at their wife, the dinner plates at their wife, and then telling the cops, and then the cops telling the wife, well, if you hadn't said that, he wouldn't have done that. You did that. You broke the relationship, and that's why he did it. That would never pass. That doesn't work. And it's not true. It's 100% not true. Sorry that happened to you, one for him. Hopefully things are going to get better down the way. Now, most educators are reporting that students in upper elementary and middle school lack foundational knowledge that was once considered basic. And I don't say all of that with judgment, but I say it with concern. And that is the third structural shift that we have seen in education, and it's the skill gap. Teachers are encountering students who struggle with naming the months of the year, or they cannot tell time on a clock that has hands on it, or they don't know their left hand from the right hand. Now, I know that you may be thinking that that's completely ridiculous, but I didn't say those things because I wanted to make something up that sounds dramatic. I said those things because I have encountered every one of those with students between the grades of 6th grade and 12th grade. Several years ago, I was a varsity softball coach, and I love my kids. But, part of what you have to teach is how to get the ball from the outfield to the infield, right, in a relay. And so the way that you teach it is by telling the girls to go out and the one that's behind them needs to line up the relay. You tell them left or right, move left or right. They could not figure out which way was left or right, and they would have to hold their hands up like this to figure out which way was left or right. And you're going to think that I'm crazy, but if you go and watch the video of Alyssa Liu, who just got the gold medal for figure skating, you will see when they played the national anthem, she didn't know which hand to put over her heart. She didn't know what to do. Go look at it. Check it out. Saw it today. So again, this is not a moral failure on the part of Gen Alpha. It's a developmental shift. It's a developmental failure. And technology 100% plays a role here. Children growing up today, they're absolutely immersed in YouTube shorts. And hey, I put up 5 or 7 YouTube shorts a week. So I'm certainly glad that people watch them. But do our kids need to watch unfettered YouTube shorts? They watch TikTok loops. They're in algorithm-driven entertainment. They get immediate digital feedback. They get immediate hits of dopamine to their head. How in the world, as teachers, can we compete with that? And they are conditioned for rapid stimulation and quick reward cycles. And so sustained focus for the Gen Alpha kid, it's so uncomfortable because their brains were shaped differently than what most of us were shaped in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and I guess even the early 2000s. So they have a deficit, but it's the teacher that has to absorb the deficit. Teachers end up spending significant amounts of time regulating emotions, teaching listening skills, teaching strategies for conflict resolution, or teaching coping skills for the student that just had somebody say something that wasn't very nice to them. And I'm not an advocate for kids saying things that aren't nice to other kids. I think they should be nice, but the truth of the matter is not all kids are nice. And sometimes our feelings are going to be hurt, but I'm amazed at how difficult it is for some students, many students, to get past that. And so here's the thing. If the only thing that a teacher had to do was come to school, plan a lesson, deliver content, make an assessment, and put grades in a grade book, teaching would be the greatest job on the planet. But the fact of the matter is that in today's classroom, teaching content is the least of what teachers have to do. Teachers are psychologists, they are mothers, they are fathers, they are counselors, they are social workers, they are strategists, they are referees. They're a lot of things except a teacher. And that is what teachers have to absorb. And if that leads you to burnout, like 59% of teachers in America right now who say that they're burned out and they feel burned out, if that's you, then I created a resource just for you. It's down in the description box. It's free. It's 100% free, and it's always free. It's our Teach Without Burnout guide. It takes you through our 5 R's of burnout recovery. It's super. It's the best guide that we have. Everybody gets it when they go to our website. It's free, 100% free, and it's always free. Or you can get it there at the QR. Either way, make sure you jump in and get it. All right. Let's try to get back to the chat box. Man, I am like lost. There are so many chats. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the way that the Teacher Talk community comes together, and you guys are so active in the chat. A lot of you are so faithful to come in and be here every Sunday night at 7 o'clock, and I sure do appreciate it. Scorpio, this is an eye opener. Admin always asks me what I did to the people, what I do to people that I'm assuming that you mean they always ask you what you did to the student, because that is 100% a stock answer right there, or a stock reply is, what did you do that caused him or her to be disrespectful? Or what did you do that caused him or her to go off? And I want to just say that in 99% of the cases, that is nothing more than the admin trying to gaslight you. That's 100% what it is. Don't let yourself be gaslit. Is that the way you would say it, or is it gas lighted? Lighted? I'm not sure which one it is. Anyway, all right, let's see right here. PRE. All right, all of these things are facts in middle schools all over. How do you teach curriculum to those sorts of deficits? Well, okay, you notice that down through that here recently, and it's like the 10-2, the 10-4-2 method. Like you get like 10 minutes of direct instruction, 4 minutes of either independent or group work, and then 2 minutes of share out time. Has anybody had that method? Anybody heard that method? 10-4-2. It's something like that. I may be saying it wrong. All right. But that is the response right there. How you teach to this deficit. And what we're trying to do with that teaching model is we're trying to create short form content, right? And that's why kids, that's why there's this big push for things like Kahoot and all the other things that you can do that are electronic, that are flashy, and they're this, that, and the other. It is to try to compete with the short form content and the noise that comes along with it, the fun that comes along with it, the dopamine that comes along with it. And I'm not saying that all of those things are bad, but to the point right here, how do you make up for those deficits? Who here has the time to plan out a 52-minute class, or if you have a block, an 80 or 90-minute block, to where you are changing directions every 4 to 5 minutes to go do something else. Teaching is hard enough, right? Let alone without having to structure your 90 minutes or your 52 minutes, however long you have, in these 4-minute blocks. It's incredibly difficult to do. I suppose some people can, and I suppose they don't have to work extra duty. They don't have to be in the lunchroom. They don't have to be in parent-teacher conferences. They don't have to be in IEPs and things like that. Apparently, they were just in a closed-in environment. Now, let's see here. This is good. I want to hear about this. Just did a training on regulation versus deregulation. Can you tell us what you learned in that training? I would absolutely 100% be excited to learn. Now, here's a statement. This used to be the greatest job on the planet, and that is 100% right. You know why? Because teachers were able to go to school, they were able to interact with students, they were able to build relationships with them, and they were able to impact their lives. They were able to watch them grow and achieve academically. Isn't that what every teacher wants? I mean, today we are finding ourselves in a position to where students make it to the 11th or 12th grade. They're on a 5th or 6th grade reading level. They're even lower than that in math. They don't have enough credits to pass. And so, I don't know how it is in other states, but when that happens in Florida, the very first thing that they do is they want to get that student an IEP. And the reason why they get them an IEP is because they can't pass their state standardized test. But if they get them the IEP, they can get them a waiver so that they don't have to pass the state standardized test. And then they can go ahead and graduate. That is where we're at in education. How ridiculous is that model? Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Let's see here. I keep trying to go to bed and you keep saying stuff. Well, holy cow. There's a problem right there. I guarantee it. I appreciate that. Hopefully you can stay awake for another 10 minutes because we got to call it off here after a while. Hey, Sarah Ann, good to see you. Thanks for jumping in. Did I see you last week? Were you in last week? I appreciate you so much for jumping in. All right, before we jump off of here, and we got just a little bit more, want to remind you of the free resources. We've had downloads tonight. I appreciate that. They're for you. They are for you, 100%. They're free. They're always free. They're 100% free. All right, make sure you go and grab those. Also, right here, if you are like me and if you struggle in life just in general and as a teacher, go ahead and book a discovery call with us, reasonably priced. I'll tell you what they are. They're $30, and I'll give you about an hour of my time. It says 30 minutes, but you'll get about an hour. All right. And we'll learn together and we'll grow together. And if you're interested, I can set you up an individual package beyond that. Did you all see me jump? My Siri heard that, and that thing yelled at me. Holy cow. That scared me to death. But anyway, I may have to go find me a new coach. By the time this is over. It scared the garbage out of me. If you're interested, go ahead and scan that, or it is down in the description box. Also, if you struggle with sensory overload, Sacred Rest is the book for you. Grab it. Sandra Dalton Smith. It's down in the description box. It'll take you over to Amazon. I don't know how much it is, like $6 or $7, but it's an easy read, it's a fast read, and it's a good read. So jump down there and get that. All right. So is there a solution to this? How in the world can this possibly be fixed? And I want you to know that there are two things that have to change, and neither one of them can be controlled by us, but they have to change. The very first thing that has to change is the parents. Parents have to reclaim the role as the primary teacher in their students' lives. And when I say teacher, I mean it from a faith-forward position. As everybody knows, we're a faith-based organization, not because we want to be offensive, but that's because who we are. The very first thing that parents need to do is train up a child in the way that he should go. And even when he is old, he will not depart from the path. That is an excellent piece of wisdom. And what it teaches us is that training cannot be outsourced. Teachers cannot become the parents of kids that come to school. You cannot outsource this. So, if parents, if you're out there, hear what I'm saying. We love you. We appreciate you. We want to be in partnership with you, but you cannot outsource training up your child to us. The second thing is that it is an intentional act of shaping the life of a young human being, because the word train implies repetition, structure, and rhythm. And that's because formation, human formation, does not happen accidentally. It happens daily. And if this process is short circuited, they will still be formed as students and as people, but they will ultimately form to a lower common denominator. Parents, here's what you can do: 30 minutes a day. Number one, read and eat together. Spend time around the table. Number two, put the devices away. Number three, do not multitask in the middle of this 30 minutes. And number four, have shared conversation with your kids. Go back to that first part of reading and eating together. That's where the magic happens. Formation doesn't happen accidentally. It happens daily. The second thing is for teachers, and it's the system. And the solution is structural. And so if you're a school leader out there, hear what I'm about to say. You have to empower your teachers to set firm, clear, non-negotiable boundaries on their time and their personal, mental, physical, and spiritual health. Empower teachers to do that. Empower teachers to address small behaviors immediately. And if you have to, take over that area and cut those behaviors off as quickly as possible. Number three, operate every year with consistent discipline frameworks. One of the things that I love about my job, I'm dean of students at my school. One of the things I love about my school is I have a discipline matrix, and it does two things. Number one, it ensures fairness across the board, that I don't show favoritism over here to this student while doing something drastic to this student. But it presents a consistent method of discipline. Every kid will know when they're on their third disruption in the classroom, they know what the discipline is going to be. And so do teachers. Number four, teach without constant policy shifts. Empower them. Don't pull the rug out. Every time a policy gets implemented, every time we're making progress with it, don't pull the rug out from underneath of teachers. Create a constant and consistent culture across the board. Now, authority is not oppression. It is not wrong for the teacher to be the authority in the classroom or the administrators to be the authority over students. It's not oppression. It is, in fact, structure. And structure creates psychological safety. And in order for students to do well at school, they have to have assurance of psychological safety. And the same is true for teachers. If teachers are going to stay in this business for the long haul, they have to feel psychologically safe. And that begins for you, teacher. Here's what you can do. That begins when you reclaim your limits and that you set boundaries and you take control of every single thing that you have control over. When you do that, you can provide some measure of psychological safety for yourself. And if you're wondering how to do that, if how to set limits, a good video for you to watch is right there. Take a few minutes and see if it won't help you a little bit. But until then, and more than anything, stay strong and keep teaching. Guys, I'm so excited. I appreciate y'all being out tonight. It has been a wonderful. I'm going to come back to the chat. So it's funny. The cluster coach, he's asking a question here. So what's the alternative? Can you see 18-year-olds in fifth grade? So I've been around this business for a long time, and I can remember an 18-year-old student in the sixth grade. I can remember that. And I have to be very honest here. I thought that was the most ridiculous thing that I had ever seen in my entire life, for a number of reasons. Number one, it doesn't seem to me to be appropriate to be 18 years old, and he was a male, and he liked young ladies, and it didn't seem to be appropriate to me for that to be going on. So the answer to that is no. I don't think that is a way to handle the issue. But I don't think social promotion is either. I think that we need to be empowered by our legislatures and the Department of Education that when we identify students that fail to progress, not because they can't, not because we haven't done everything under the sun to try to help them, but because they simply will not do anything at all, we need the ability to remove them from our schools. Not necessarily expulsion as a discipline measure, but of, hey, you are incorrigible. You do not want to be taught. You have demonstrated that because you've never met the standards. And so we turn them back to the first teacher, which is their parents. Their parents are responsible, not us. Somebody's got to say it, and I'm saying it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm going to say it. Sarah Ann right here, appreciate that. An IEP is not the solution for students that don't, an IEP is not a solution for students that simply just don't put in the work. All right. The IEP was created to create equal access to education, which I am an advocate of. It protects the right of those who are disabled. It was never intended to become a way to boost your graduation rates. It was never intended to become a weapon so that bad behavior can't be disciplined. That wasn't the purpose of it. It was to create equal access to education. Again, I'm an advocate. I think every teacher's an advocate of that. And so we got to get that back in order. All right, number 3. Let's see what it says. Number 3 needs to happen the most. Man, I don't even know what number 3 was. I got to go back and look. Operate with consistent discipline frameworks. I think that's what you're talking about. And you're right, because consistency, just like consistency in your classroom, right? You can't come into the classroom one day and do business this way and then come in the next day and do business this way, or the day after that and do business this way. You can't do that. That'll never work. The kids will be off the wall. When they walk into the office, because they've either been sent there or they've been given a referral, they need to be pretty certain about how that's going to turn out. And the teachers need to feel confident that this is the way it's going to go. Absolutely down here. Look at what we got. Absolutely. 100% the responsibility of the parents. It is the responsibility of the parents. It is not the responsibility of a school to force any student to do their academic work if they don't want to do it. We should provide every accommodation, modifications if necessary, interventions, a response to interventions, absolutely for sure. We should do all of those things and be professional about it. But when a student is identified as one that will not apply him or herself, it is time to go back to the parents. and let the parents figure it out. There's any method of providing education for kids. When I was a kid in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and I guess probably the early 2000s, the only place you could actually get an education was at school or at homeschool because somebody taught you. Today, there are so many online platforms where parents can take their kids homeschool and they can enroll them into these online platforms. I mean, every state I think has its own version of a public school online. And then there's Penn Foster, there's K-12. God, I can't even name all of them. I'd have to go and look into my resources. But when parents think about withdrawing their kids to homeschool, I go through all of that with them all the time. There's any number of ways for students to get an education. And you know what? The online environment might just be the best environment for that student. That's okay. And the parents can help make that happen. All right. Listen, hour and 10 minutes. I have enjoyed it. I appreciate all of you. Every Sunday night, 7 p.m., we're right here. Next week, Doc Pender and Carol Osteen are back with us, and we're going to answer questions because I literally have, I don't know, maybe it seems like 4 or 5,000 comments that I filtered through, and I put together some of the most common questions that people wanted to know the answer to, and we're just going to deal with those. It's going to be kind of like a Q&A. So mark your calendar for 7 p.m. Eastern time next Sunday, and we'll see you here. But until then, stay strong and keep teaching. Don't you give up.